can't see if you're new, you're coming in. For some reason, I can't see the chats today. Don't know why. So I'm assuming 26 people are here, so you must be seeing me. I hope so. Yeah. Yep, I don't know how to change that. So I will just go ahead and start reading. And I will just make my own comments then. Sorry, you can't ask questions, but you can bring them next time. So most of you all are probably familiar with AEDP if you've seen my series on it. And I think this one little piece of clinical work demonstrates kind of a lot. That's great. Sometimes I'll use it for a good example of something called therapeutic focus, which just means keeping the client sort of on a particular piece of work. I can't remember if we've had a day together on therapeutic focus, but it's really easy for therapists to kind of allow things to meander. And some forms of therapy that's even encouraged. But it is really hard to go deep when you're kind of just meandering all over the place, because it takes time to figure out what's underneath and what's underneath. If you want to go under what's under this, what's under this, what's under this, you kind of have to keep a thread going. If you change topics or get oh, that reminds me of this other thing that might be important and relevant, but it's over here, it's hard to have enough time really to go deep, or even if you get somewhere, to have enough time to actually do a healing piece around it. So you see her doing some really great therapeutic focus in this section. But then it's also a great example of memory reconsolidation. Even though they don't talk a lot about memory reconsolidation in AEDP, I think she might mention it, that she's doing that, that's probably what's happening in here somewhere. We've been talking recently, us have been talking recently about the various kinds of schemas that can be disconfirmed. And I think we were talking about trauma at some point, how we have these trauma memories and how they become encapsulated, like we don't want to look at them or touch into them. But then they don't get kind of updated in a way with, it's almost like instead of just being a memory that gets integrated into our narrative of our life so that we're like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. It's almost like the memory itself becomes like a little reality that when that memory gets triggered, it really feels like not only is it happening again, which is scary, but it only knows what was true for that memory during that memory. It doesn't know, for instance, that we survived or that we're powerful now, or, those kinds of things. So she's working with a memory such as that in here in this piece of clinical work having to do with a car accident. And this is also a great case for when I sometimes described, I can't remember if I've used this with you guys, but with my students, like you start with the symptom and then it's like reverse engineering to figure out what's under the symptom. So he comes in with a pretty specific symptom and then she's just reverse engineering. She's like, okay, so what's happening just before that might trigger this? And then what does that link to? And you can kind of see her going deeper, linking deeper and deeper until she kind of is like, okay, I think I know what's driving this whole thing and what we need to do there, what the update for that neural network is. So let's read it, and that's it. So it starts, this is our first session. Experiential therapists don't mess around. So I did a pretty big piece of healing and trauma work on the first session. And who is this? Karen, somebody, maybe I should give credit to who this is. Karen Krantz is a therapist. Okay, so therapist. Come on in and have a seat. This is right at the beginning. Yeah, perfect. And you can make yourself comfortable. You can get rid of the pillow. Do you want some water? So she's doing nice things to make it comfortable, Client, yeah, please, that would be great. They sit down. So she says this little next piece, I think is kind of a nice, how she also starts therapy with a little bit of an intro into who she is and how she works, which is kind of nice. So a little about me is I have a PhD in counseling psychology. I'm a registered psychologist on the faculty of the AEDP Institute. I do teaching and supervision. Client, okay. I think that part could have been skipped probably, but this next part is good. How I see this work is that I bring me into our relationship, as well as my training and experience in counseling and in therapy and psychology, and you bring you, and we come together to work on things that you've told me about in emails or whatever else that arises for you. I will lead sometimes, and I will be following you sometimes. Client nods, and we kind of dance a bit, and we find our way. Sometimes we step on each other's toes, and hopefully we can always repair anything that doesn't feel right or good for you. So she actually said a lot already in there. She's saying, this is going to be a collaboration, especially AEDPs vary about the relationship and the dance. It's like I'm being in attunement, I'm adjusting. You let me know what's going on for you and what you need, and we're going to explore it together. But I'm like right by your side. That's a big part of the healing. So she's saying that right away, like, we're going to be collaborative. I'm going to bring my expertise on the process, but you have to bring your inner world. You're the only one that knows that. And she's already saying, we'll step on each other's toes, but tell me. So she's like already communicating, I want to know if I get it off. If you need something different, if I offend you, if I'm not quite doing it right for you, you tell me. So client says, right. One of the things that I found hasn't worked with counselors in the past is that they let me lead too much, and I haven't felt there was too much of an engagement. So again, that's that thing I was talking about of sometimes we therapists can, especially depth therapists, can get a little bit like we're trying to make so much space that then the client feels like not engaged with, and like also they're meandering. So he says, I do like to be cut off. I tend to talk a lot. So if you see something you like to bring up, that's a good way of working for me. Therapist, you know what? I'm so glad you invited me into that because I will stop you, because the way I work is experientially, which means, yeah, you might be telling me something that's happened outside of this room, but I'm going to want to stop you and say, Sam, what's going on right now? As you're telling me about this, what's coming up? Then I work very emotionally, because this is ADP, very emotion focused. Then I work very emotionally. So what feelings are coming up? And then let's understand what those emotions are about and what they're telling us. Client, mm-hmm. And I also work very relationally. So I'm going to be checking in with you. How are you feeling? Do you feel like I'm getting you? Am I missing the boat here? Or do you feel confident and comfortable with me? And those kinds of things. So, and I just also want to ask that at any time, if I ask something and you want to put it aside, that's fine. You can say, not ready. Can we set that aside? Of course, we can set that aside. Or you can ask me what I'm thinking, because I'm happy to be transparent as I can about the process we're engaging in. So again, a lot of setting up the stage here. She said, I'm going to be asking about your experience with emotions, and between us, how we're doing. If I ever ask you something you don't answer, just say no. And you can ask me what I'm thinking. So she's kind of saying a lot there. Okay, so that was a good setup. Sam nods. He says, cool. Okay. Any other questions for me? No, I think that's pretty good. I'm sure they'll come up. I'm sure anytime. So just take a moment and check in with how you're feeling even being here, which being anxious wouldn't be a surprise, but just how are you doing, starting with me? There's a mix of anxiety, just about sort of putting things out on the table, which I don't do with a lot of people. And then there's like a huge amount of excitement as well, because I don't know, like this is the first time starting therapy where it's really something I want to follow through with. I feel like I'm at the age and point in my life where it's going to like affect good change, and I'm ready for that change. So that's where the excitement's coming from. Absolutely, absolutely. And then I'm also a little nervous because no one wants to believe there's like things wrong with them and things that they have to change, but there's like two specific outcomes I want to change. Okay, so the first goal whenever you're working experientially is to get the outcome that is wanted, the client wants to change. So that's really important that he already knows there's kind of two specific things I want to change. So in a moment, she's going to want to elaborate on those. However, he just said something she also needs to follow up on. He says, no one wants to believe like there's things wrong with them. Now, why would she want to say something about that? I mean, one, there aren't things wrong with people. So first of all, like she has a little correction there, like a loving, hey, reframe, like this is how I look at it. And I think emotionally he probably deserves and needs that reframe. Otherwise he's coming at it like, we need to fix me, which is not really a healing energy, as we've talked about a lot. And it's not even fair. That's not the point. The point isn't to change the person. The point is to like unbury the person so they can be more of themselves. There's a pattern that's getting blocked from them being their true self. So you might want to work with that, whatever, healing the pattern so they can feel freed up to be themselves. That's it. Philosophically, that feels different than saying we are changing you. We're just freeing you to be yourself. You're fine. Your true self is great. You have some learning that's blocking you from being your true self. So we'll undo that learning. And there's change involved in that. And you might show up differently and behave differently after that and seem different, like a new person, maybe in some ways, but we're not actually trying to change you. So she goes straight for that, which I think is a beautiful thing. She says, yeah. And, you said nobody likes to see that there are things wrong with them. My experience, how I understand things, even how I understand myself, because we're both humans trying to figure life out. That was a nice touch. She's saying, I'm in this with you. That's always important whenever there's like shamey stuff. It's like, hey, I'm not perfect either. Because we're both humans trying to figure this out. That that there are things that get in the way of us being our full selves. Client nods. You being Sam, I doubt that's his real name. I'm sure it's not, but Sam is the client. You being Sam, your best self, Sam, and me being my best self, Karen. So when you say there's things to change, I see it as if we don't want to change Sam. We actually want to kind of bring Sam to life. He says, in the fullness, the sense of him. So it's not like a new and improved Sam, but it's a Sam that's already there, but all these other things get in the way of you being able to be the person that is compelling you to want to shift some of these behaviors that's getting in the way of you being you. Does that make sense? So that's a nice, it's nice that they could begin with that, That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. By the way, if you're just coming in, for some reason, the chats are not working. I see 0 chats. So I'm so sorry that this may be a one-way conversation today. And I'm reading from this book, the new AEDP book. And this is a intake session. So client says, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And how do you feel about what I'm saying? So it's always an experiential thing. If you say something, especially if it's deep, like, hey, we're not trying to change you, we're trying to free you. The follow-up question is always, how is it to hear me say that? You're always wanting to check in with experience. So how do you feel about what I'm saying? Yeah, good. Okay. Good. Okay. So the excitement to change some of the things that get in the way. So this is another slightly, okay. So they did that nice little piece of work around, he had a mindset of, we're fixing me. She said, we're not fixing you. We're trying to free you. But he said 2 things. I have some things I want to change. So you definitely want to get to clarify that. But he did say I have some excitement to change and motivation. And an ADP, and this, this is very ADP. You wouldn't necessarily do this and everything, but in an ADP, they're also looking for, right off the bat, these glimmers of health. They call it transformance. It's like, even if people have things they want to work on, they have some beautiful qualities and some desire to grow and heal that we can kind of we want to recognize that too, like their inner resilience or natural health or whatever, impulse toward health, I guess. So even though he said, I have these things I want to work on, he said he was excited. So she's excited. So she's just going to pull that a little bit and say, good, the excitement. Says, okay, so the excitement to change some of the things that get in the way. And then she knows from the phone call before the session, marijuana, alcohol, anger. Those are things he wants to work on. So tell me about this. So she could have said, tell me about the marijuana, alcohol, and anger. But she says, so tell me about the stirring that's inside you that says it's time to change. Well, part of it is the girl that I'm dating. I really feel like she's the one. And I want to change for us because she's really level-headed and down to earth. And a lot of the behavior I've shown is at my worst times really scares her. And it's things I don't know. And it's things I don't know. I couldn't find my gym shorts one morning and I was like, oh, F-U-C-K. I guess I won't cuss on this. And I threw the basket and I was like, this is ridiculous. Our house is so effing dirty. And I want to make our relationship better by being happy-go-lucky. Let's go skiing. Let's go for a bike ride. Let's go for a walk. And not everything's wrong. Okay, so he's wanting to change for his relationship partly. And therapist says, I love this. Okay, let's slow down. Okay, so now she's kind of getting his desires. He's wanting to work on his relationship. He's saying, sometimes I just randomly get married. Why is everything so dirty? And he gets really upset. So she's already going to start slowing down. She said, okay, let's slow down. What comes before the anger? Okay, so that's a reverse engineering question. That's okay, so we have the anger on the surface, but what's the thing that triggers it? And the client says, uncertainty. And then she says, can we work with a real example, either a really significant one or a recent one? Okay, so when you're doing experiential work, you get clear what they're wanting to work on. So he already is kind of my anger. He already talked about I just couldn't find my gym shorts, blah. And she's like, okay, so what's happening right before that? Uncertainty. Okay, so so she's getting a sense a little bit more now. Okay, so he has a specific pattern. It's not just anger. It's when he's feeling uncertain, he gets angry. Okay, so that's a little bit more fleshing out of what the concern is. And now the best way to usually go in is asking for an example, because then you can really slow down and say, okay, what's happening? Let's slow this down. He says, yeah, I was trying to get my stuff ready to go to the gym, which I usually do in the morning. I was just looking for stuff. And then I don't know what I was uncertain about, but it's this feeling of what am I doing? Where am I going? What do I have to do next? And then and he said, okay, wait, tell me more. Because you're telling me about what you think is happening, but I'm wondering what's happening in your body, that uncertainty, how it sits with you. Sort of like butterflies, like a nervous angst that I don't really know where it's coming from, to be honest. So she's already kind of directing him a little bit somatically. So she has a scene. He's there. I don't know what's happening. And she says, okay, so how is that for you? There's a nervousness. How's it in your body? It's like butterflies. She says, can you feel it right now? Yeah. Okay. I know it's uncomfortable, but can we just stay with it? The nervous angst, butterfly, edgy. Yeah. In the chest or stomach, or it's in the chest. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there. So let's just stay with it. And let's just imagine. Okay. So, sorry, I'm going to take a sip of my tea real quick. Okay, so she's got him, she now has, okay, so there is this feeling. She didn't stay long with the example. I would have stayed a little bit longer with the example. So right then, you could have really, there's kind of two ways to begin deepening in. You can deepen in through an example, like, okay, so right there, what are you thinking right that moment? Go back to that moment. Where are the gym shorts? Pause right there. Okay, what's going through your head right there? You can't find the gym shorts. It's like you could really slow down and work in the example, really seeing what comes up. What are you thinking, feeling? What are you predicting? What would be the worst case if you couldn't find your gym shorts? Just really kind of exploring what's going on in his mind in that moment with the gym shorts. She goes, there's a second one that IFS actually does more too, which is more somatic. So as soon as he gets kind of a beat on it, like, I don't know, it's like there's this angsty kind of thing. So, it's kind of there. She says, okay, so tell me about that. Can we just notice how it lives in your body? So that's this other way to kind of slow things down so you can begin exploring it as a more somatic way. I think, hold on, let me go change my position real quick. I'll just go over here. Are y'all coming in? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to run downstairs then. Okay, let me run downstairs. I wish I could see y'all's chats. I'm hoping that we can follow next week. Okay, changing rooms real quick. Okay, back to the blue sofa room. Okay, all right. So she's going a more somatic way in. So then he says, yeah, okay, I know it's uncomfortable, but whenever you're slowing down with these pieces and begin to going in, the job is, yes, to slow down. You're wanting to see what's under this, like to map it out, to use that example or the body. But the other job at the same time is to help it feel safe, to create a little, some space, like, okay, we're in this, we're just going slow, like there's no rush. We're kind of collaborating with your deeper mind to show us at the right pace, so that we can understand bit by bit. It doesn't have to flood us, which you could certainly do through parts work, but she's not using parts language. She's just kind of identifying the part more through the body. Like there's a somatic thing, but she's still relating to it. Like, how can we relate to this? Is this okay to be with? Can we just kind of be compassionate with it even and just let it tell us its story? Like, what's going on? What is this about? Okay, so can you feel it right now? Yeah. Okay. I know it's uncomfortable, but can we just stay with it? This nervous angst, butterfly, edgy. Yeah. Is it chest or stomach, or it's in the chest? Okay, so let's just stay with it. And let's just imagine that it's actually talking to you. Again, very similar to parts work. You just don't have to use parts language necessarily, but feelings have things they're trying to tell us, right? It's actually talking to you and letting you know something about what's happening, either in your thoughts or happening in your circumstances. So this is a little bit of coherence work. You're trying to understand, so what does the neural network know that's making you feel scared? What is it telling you about what's happening? Like, what's happening is my girlfriend's about to judge me for not, whatever. It's like just slowing down, seeing what that, part or neural network or schema or whatever. And letting you know something about what's happening either in your thoughts or happening in your circumstances. Just notice when you don't try and shove it away and you don't try and react to it. So there's probably things he does is like try to shift states really fast. He doesn't like this uncomfortable feeling. In fact, in a moment, you'll see that's why he goes to rage, just so he doesn't have to feel it. But he's like, okay, so we're not doing the normal thing, which is just raging it away. We're going to slow down and really hear what's trying to tell you. Just observe it with really gentle, compassionate eyes. It's almost like it feels like caffeine, like I've had too much caffeine. Yeah, like a little jittery, a little sort of like ready to, yeah. And this kind of now, okay, so now she's trying to deep and see what this is about. Classic question therapists use for that. And this is kind of a familiar feeling or experience for you. So just trying to see, like, when does this come up? It's probably not the first time. He says, that arises quite frequently. Yeah, yeah. And then you shift it. Either you have a little bit of an explosion and that kind of shifts it, or you smoke a joint or something and that shifts it. Or maybe do a big workout and maybe that shifts it. Yeah. But you kind of don't really know, what is this agitation I live with? Does that feel true? Yeah. He says, it's somewhat, yeah. Somewhat? Tell me more. Um, well, there's also this like shortness of breath that happens as well. So as soon as he says shortness of breath, she just begins wondering if it feels a little panicky. And he says yes. And then that gets her thinking, okay, maybe there's trauma here. So she says, feels a little panicky. Panic is exactly it. Yeah. Like I've got something to do or something or to get to or something to complete like immediately, and there's this urgency to it. And it's unsettling because I'm not entirely sure what the urgency is for. So what we know so far from the reverse engineering, which is more than what he came in with, was he has an urgency that will come up in his system that feels panicky, actually. It's unsettling, probably partly because he doesn't know what it's for. It's like crazy making, like, I'm just having my day. I can't find my gym shorts, and now I'm feeling like, this panicky feeling. And that he then does what he came in as his symptoms, drinking, smoking, or raging, yelling, I guess, are his solutions, his way of getting out of the agitation. Remember, I know we talk a lot about on my channel that usually the symptoms people come in with are actually solutions to something else that's underneath. So they kind of found the thing underneath. There's this it's not random, but it's like now and again comes up this urgent feeling like there's something I have to do, um, something to complete. I think it's funny he says that because we talked about completion before. Trauma is when you couldn't complete something, you couldn't protect yourself fully and let the whole like empowerment arc happen. You got kind of frozen and stuck. So he has this feeling something didn't get completed. He says, it's like I tend to rush things, even in social situations. I'll say, a friend texts me, I'm like, I'm there, and I rush there. It's a little silly. Okay, so now she's wondering what this is about. She's starting to think, okay, this seems related to trauma. Like something happened that never got processed. It's in the body. So she says, can I ask you something, Sam? Do you have a memory or memories of this kind of feeling that you're describing, this urgency, panicky, that takes you back in time? Like, do you remember it as a child? I don't know. My whole child is such a blur, which is sometimes really common with attachment stuff. So she's immediately kind of saying child because she's an AEDP therapist. They think attachment. It's not actually an attachment thing. It's a big T trauma, as a car accident. But she's kind of, is this familiar from when you were a child? But she's like, my child is kind of a blur. But she doesn't stop there. She says, well, does this feeling, do you remember it from teen years? Like when you were, like if you just do, like let's say, like if you were just to do a little review of your life, do you remember when you first started noticing this feeling, being aware and conscious of it? I don't know if this is the first time because I've always had a bit of a short temper, but I really like one that sticks out as being the first instance of this sort of panic attacks I've had was after I got out of the hospital. Okay, well, now they're starting to get somewhere. There was a song. It sent me into this panic, and I ended up in a fetal position by the front door of my bedroom, by the door of my bedroom, just screaming, make it stop. And my parents had no idea what was going on. They really didn't understand. They were like, calm down, and the usual reaction. Okay, so now they've got a lead. So it started off with rage. Underneath it, they realized rage was just a defense not to feel panicky. She's kind of starting to very slowly be like, okay, can we just notice panicky, but keep your bearings, have compassion for yourself. We can take this slow. Is this okay to be with? Asking permission. And then he seems okay. So she's asking, okay, is this linked to anything? He's like, I don't know. I don't really remember my childhood. Just review your life. When did it come up? She's looking for a clue. Like, when did it start? Well, first time I had a panic attack was that after I got out of the hospital. Okay. So now they have okay, So maybe it's about whatever happened that put you in the hospital, right? Okay, so that being said, he immediately describes a pretty big. I was by the. I was, on the floor. Make it stop. A pretty activating memory is the first one that comes up. So she has to remember the other thing that the therapist has to do is make sure it feels workable. You don't want to go so fast, like where it becomes actually like you're in the flashback. You're kind of like looking at it from a distance. You're saying, okay, this is the place that usually comes online as a flashback, but now we're trying to have it with actual consciousness. It's a memory, so it doesn't flood you, but we can still work with that neural network, right? So update it. But that takes a lot of going slow and regulating. And can we be with this? And what do you need? So she does this in a very IFS-ish way, by saying, okay, that's a part. She doesn't. I don't think she uses the parts language, but she's like, that's you back then. Your adult self is with me. Your 17-year-old self is like there. You don't have to go back and become him again. So she's really kind of doing some setting up right here for that, as I'm about to read. So she says, Sam, as you're telling me about this, in this moment, do you feel more connected to the space that you're in, where you're in that fetal position by the door? Do you feel more connected to that space? Or do you feel like you're here with me looking at the younger you? So that's the classic question. It's like, you don't want to become that again. Sometimes people like see it as if they're like, they literally are like looking through the eyes of that memory rather than looking at the memory from an objective, so you want it to be from an objective position. You don't want to re-experience the memory. So she's like, okay, are you more connected to there or with me here? And he says, I feel like I'm kind of there. So she says, yeah, because I'm wondering if we could. So it's 10 years ago, the car accident. I'm wondering if there's a way that 24-year-old Sam and I could very gently watch, but be with 15-year-old Sam who was really, really scared. I'm assuming scared and panicky and, make it stop and out of control. I don't want you to go there. I want you to be able to hang in. I want us to be able to hang in together, but be as close to him as we can. Do you think that's possible? So she's like, let's stay with me. You need me. You need to be here in the present moment. We can get as close to him as we can, but don't go fully there. He says, I'll try. Yeah. Okay. So you and I are here, and there's a younger you against the door in the fetal position saying, make it stop, make it stop. You and I are going, oh my goodness, what does he want to stop? What is it that's happening inside him that's so scary, that's scaring him in this moment? Right? So she's keeping his curiosity, like you and I, this is what we're doing. We're saying, oh my God, what's happening with him? That's a lovely way to keep him really resourced, in his present day self, and bring on curiosity. Like, are you curious? Why is he so scared? You mentioned like going back to the point where I was feeling it for the first time, like real, like, I don't know what's about to happen, where I didn't know what was about to happen. And it was like, I remember a play-by-play for the accident. So now he's actually remembering the car accident. But she has to check with him. Okay, so are you going to the accident? So she says, so right now it's feeling like you're here with me. You're not in the car right now. Does that feel true? Yeah. And there is the 15-year-old you saying, make it stop, slow down, stop. Mm-hmm. And he's scared. Mm-hmm. And he sees what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And he can't do anything about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a very, very accurate portrayal, the client says. Uh-huh. And as you and I, they do a lot of you and I in ADP as us, you and I together sit here, and we're looking at that moment in time where the younger you is sitting in. What's happening inside you? He says, I feel quite calm. And she says, adult Sam is feeling quite calm in the present moment, which indicates to me that he is unblended. So she's using the IFS word, then unblended from his 15-year-old Sam in the car accident, and that the dyadic affect regulation is effective. Okay, that's ADP language there. The therapist says, okay, so what do you want to give him? Okay, so now they've actually gotten a lot done in 20, with the first session. So they figured out what's underneath the rage. There's a feeling uncertainty. Whenever he feels uncertain, which maybe not finding his gym shorts and not being able to know if he's going to find them could make him feel, it flashbacks him to the worst moment of uncertainty of his whole life that never got processed. So it lives in a flashbacky form, which was during the car accident. Now he's feeling panic. Now he has to get out of the panic, so he rages. So that's the pattern that they've realized, okay, by this point, which is a lot of work to get done. So if she wants to change that, she now is thinking, okay, we got to work with this neural network, this memory that never got processed. So when it comes up, it feels like I don't know what's going to happen, and that's really scary. And I'm about to die, probably. I don't know, but I feel like I'm about to die, which is a horrible thing to have to relive throughout his life. So she's like, okay, we have to open that neural network, stay regulated enough that we're not flooded, because otherwise we can't have memory consolidation happen. We can't update it and learn. But and he also can't really show his old self his adult self knows, which is actually we survived. So she set up a moment. This is not every memory consolidation moment looks like this, but this is a version of memory consolidation because he has now the memory neural network very much online because he's imagining it and seeing himself at that scene, having the memory there in a new way. So he's not flooded. And now he can have the new information, which she's about to kind of aim toward of, okay, what does this neural network need to know that it doesn't know yet? Metaphorically, what does young Sam need to know or 15-year-old Sam in the middle of that accident need to know? But it's really you're updating a neural network. So she says, okay, so what do you want? So she says, okay, so what do you want to give him? Because right now he's in the crux of that experience where he wants it to stop. He's not in control. He can't do anything. He sees it coming. His life is flashing before his eyes. And now on the other side of that experience, the you here today, what do you want to be able to say to him? Okay, this is a perfect setup for memory consolidation because we know something that this neural network doesn't know. So we set that up metaphorically by saying, you know something that that part of you doesn't. So tell it. Because we're aiming for a mismatch. If this new information can come, mismatches with what this memory knows, which is I'm about to die, then the memory can shift and transform. So the first thing client says is, I mean, at first, like the obvious thing I would say to him is that it sort of turns out okay. Yeah, I'm still here, he chuckles. I didn't die, voice trembling. If we imagine he's frozen in space, he doesn't know that, so he actually needs to know that. She's really kind of slowing down, make sure this moment happens, Yeah. That panic 15-year-old you in that freeze frame moment needs to know that. And what happens inside when I say that? It kind of makes me want to cry. Yeah. Could you just feel that, please? Could you just please let those tears come? Client softly crying. Yeah, Sam, just be with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just let it come. Let yourself feel. So it's just a little piece of, as he gets less frozen around this whole thing, also there's just some feelings that can come through. Client says, it's just like that point. It was just like to look back and try to remember okay. He goes, okay, this is interesting. So he says it's reminding him of his, how he can't remember much about his childhood before the accident, which is a lot up until 15. And like I've said it before that I feel like there was this pre-accident Sam before, and then there's the 2 years of me trying to figure out who I was again after the accident. Okay, so this is all, it's within there. He's kind of having some feelings now about just the whole thing. It softened him to be able to like have some tears, which are probably good. It's a little, not exactly that memory consolidation moment, but it's part, it's like releasing some, softening things so he can have some feelings. But that kind of just reminds him of the sadness of like all the disjointedness he felt in his identity from the experience, like who I was before and that was different than after, which is a beautiful thing to work on in therapy, but it's different than this moment that they had set up. It trigger, again, our mind has lots of connections it can make. So it connected to a spot over here. And remember I said at the beginning, she does beautiful therapeutic focus in this session. So even though I'll just read what she says as a way of saying, look, we worked really hard to get here. It's not finished yet. Let's stay here. We're close. Like this is really important work. We're in the middle of doing a piece of work here. Let's stay with it. So she says, so I just want you to stay with me. And I want to go back to Sam in the car and give him some attention. And I get it. I want to go back to pre-accident Sam too. And the 2 years of trying to come back. And then the Sam now in the last couple of years. But let's go back to the Sam who in that moment is feeling holy F, because we need to let him know that he comes out. Yeah. What's happening inside as I say that? All right. He's able to kind of go back and start to, let's see what she says. Sam is letting me know that there is unprocessed painful experiences associated with the car accident. I explicitly acknowledge this to Sam and gently ask him to set those aside so we can continue to process this piece of work. Sam's returns to a play-by-play of the accident. The word uncertainty is sprinkled throughout. Okay, so you just backed us up, and now 15-year-old Sam, yep, go ahead. And that last stretch was the real piece of uncertainty. And when the first moment of seeing the tires go out, that's when I was like, "Oh no, we're effed." I usually do cuss, but I'm not going to for this. But obviously, we're both okay. Okay, tell that to 15-year-old Sam. Like out loud? Yeah, we're okay. Reach out a hand to him and say, "I see we're gonna be okay. It's effed up, but we're gonna be okay." Yeah. And I want him to look at you. I want you to just take a moment out of the time-space continuum because that's how these memories live. They're not in time. So they're kind of like you can kind of go beyond the time-space continuum for a moment and just be with that Sam. Let him know what he needs to know. Just look at him and tell him again, "We're gonna be okay." Let him really breathe that in. Yes. Feel that. Feel that. Sam, what's happening inside? Well, I'm trying to like imagine myself in that moment before the impact with the first car. Yeah. And I'm sort of trying to imagine myself like I'm sitting as a 15-year-old, but I'm also imagining myself like what I've done in these last few years, looking and trying to say, like through the windshield almost, as a car is coming, that we're going to be okay. And that makes me feel horrible because not everyone was okay. Okay, so that's a separate piece. Again, she has to it's a big piece. I don't know what that even means. If somebody was hurt or died, I have no idea. But, that would certainly need to be processed, but it's still different than this panicky, "I don't know if I'm gonna live" piece. So even with that, she actually redirects them. She says, "Okay, you know what, Sam? We can spend some time with how not everybody was okay, but we just stay with 15-year-old Sam right now?" So she's kinda coming back because they were doing a really important piece of work. And just let him know and make sure he can feel it so that he can come all the way into the future, into today with you. He doesn't have to be left in that car in that moment. It's just another way of saying that neural network. It's the update, right? So he says, right, frozen in time, says the client. I think one of the things that feels really useful is to imagine, is like imagining myself in that seat, his voice cracking, the car seat. And then I can imagine myself in in my university, in the chair at university. Um, And the therapist says, "Yes." It's like saying to your 15-year-old self, "Yes, you're in that seat now, but you're gonna be in a seat in university." So feel that, Sam. Feel the truth of that. This seat in the car, and then you're gonna be a seat in the university. See how that's a mismatch? You can't be frozen in the seat of the car if you're actually, it's like letting that neural network know life continued on. We survived. We're okay. We're in a university seat now. Just let yourself feel. It's so important. From this seat in the car, which is holy F and so scary, to the seat in university. Yeah, yeah. And can you tell me what's happening inside? I feel quite calm. Wow. But then it's also quite like, I don't know, it's but also quite like I don't feel very tense. I think a lot of the tension I had this morning, I can already feel that kind of leaving. Yep. So just feel that. Your body's relaxing. And I think I feel like okay. I just tell me about feeling okay. I feel it's like I haven't really let myself cry about the accident. I think it was good to go back. Yeah. It's good to go back to the 15-year-old Sam who was so scared and let him know he's going to be sitting in the university seat. Yeah, it's almost like resolve, if you will, the unfinished story. Exactly. So really let yourself feel that because he's been holding that uncertainty right back to where you started the session for a long time. Yeah. He needs to know that you are the man you are today. Hmm. Uh, uh, yeah, what happens inside when I say those words? He needs to know that you are the man you are today. It feels good. I mean, I've done a lot of things I'm really proud of. You have. Tell him. I've done what you've done. Buddy, we did good. That's cute. You, buddy, we did good. Yeah. Yeah. Let yourself release any emotions there, Sam. Yeah, for him, for you, and let the two of you come together in the reality of today and all you've been through and all that is good in your life. Like Beth, the girlfriend. Yeah. Emotion there. Yeah. It feels quite good, actually, says the client. Tell me more about it feeling quite good. It feels like a relief. It feels like, tell me about you feeling relief. I feel relief. It doesn't matter why she said that. I feel that. I sort of like we go back to that moment now or like subsequent moments that followed. He lists some moments that followed. The uncertainty of like, I can sort of go back there now and therapist says, go back there and Fill in the uncertainty. Exactly. Because now you know. Client says, yeah, because now you know. Yeah. And I can, at least for this moment, I'm going back and looking at those situations rather than feeling the uncertainty that I used to feel, that you felt then. Yes. I'm going back and sort of approaching it with the lens of, it's okay. This did happen, but it's okay. Yes. And how does that feel? Feels really good. They go on a little bit more, and it's kind of interesting. Oh, maybe I should just read it since I can't see y'all's questions anyways. Hopefully I can do one more page. And that feels really good. Okay, good. Um, feel that feeling of it feeling really good. Yeah. It's almost like empowering. Yes. Tell me about empowering. It sort of feels like I have a strategy to work with. You do have a strategy to work with. And tell me how younger Sam feels. Younger Sam still feels a little uncertain. Uh-huh. Like he hasn't quite heard you. No, again, he's going to another piece here, another related piece. I don't know. I feel like there's still that feeling of panic, not being able to go back around specifically not being able to go back to the healthiest I will ever be because of all the surgeries and stuff. And there was a result of that, and that makes me feel a little anxious. So that's still going into a slightly different piece of trauma work around the surgeries and stuff. But they've done enough for today. She wants to just kind of solidify the piece they did. So she says, so that feels like, and correct me, but that feels like another piece for us to work on is the losses that did come out of the accident. Yeah. So can we bring some certainty to that 15-year-old you in terms of what does happen for you? And there's some things that the 15-year-old is still holding that don't turn out okay, and we need to do some work around that. Client says, yeah. Does that feel right? Yeah, it does. Yeah. How do you feel about this piece of work we did today? Really good. I mean, I've never worked with a counselor who was like able to get me to go into that sort of scenario. I think that worked really well. Yeah, it feels right. It feels right. Like it felt like we were in it. The therapist says it felt like we were in it and we're doing this, right? And then we can really distinguish between the you are today and the 15-year-old you in that situation, and that there's a lot, and that you're not there anymore. Client says, mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's a delight to be working with you. It was very fun. That's good. So the client, yes. So that was another session. Pretty much for an intake session to get done. Most therapists aren't on the AEDP faculty, so they probably wouldn't do that much in one session, especially a first session. But let's see. I do wish I could see y'all's comments. I'm sorry that I can't bring them next time. But I think that's hopefully a little nice nugget for y'all today of like what deep therapy can look like. She did a lot. It was very masterful. She did a lot of the focusing, the deepening, make sure it was safe to deepen by saying, hey, we're here together. So she did affective, I think she was calling it dyadic affect regulation, helping it feel reasonably regulated by saying, I'm here, we're looking. And then also by unblending the IFS. Hey, you don't have to go back there and relive it. It's you watching the young Sam, you watching the memory, you watching the part or interacting with it or speaking to it. You don't have to become it. That's unblending. And that helps a lot with affect regulation. And see how that's so new, because if that, whenever that neural network has come online in the past, it hasn't been able to get updated because he's been so flooded by it. So it hasn't been in the learning brain state where you can even notice mismatches, to notice like, oh, wait, I guess I'm alive now. It's like for that, remember our mismatch detector system goes offline when we're flooded. So this is how people can get stuck without recovering, it's like fully, because even though his conscious mind knows he survived the accident, the neural network that holds the memory is holding it out. Again, I love how she said outside the space-time continuum, but that's real. Those neural networks exist when they're triggered. It feels like now. And what they know now is, I think I'm about to die in this case. And you could say, well, why wouldn't it get updated? Because you're so flooded that you're not getting you're not noticing, like, oh, I'm okay. So it's like, in some ways she's saying, okay, we're trying to like recreate the thing that happens to you so fast that nothing productive comes out of it and you're too dysregulated. Have that happen. Let's bring that network online purposefully, but in this really careful way, so that you're feeling grounded enough that your system can say, oh, I get what this is about, and I know exactly the disconfirmation. I know what I need to give. It's about uncertainty. Uncertainty feels really scary. Uncertainty feels like I'm about to die, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm about to die. Oh, actually, I do know. You didn't. And it's like stabilizing the brain to be able to do the work it needs to do to update some old implicit schema. With that updated, if that uncertain feeling isn't flashbacking, then he no longer has a need for the rage and the drinking and the got it. I wish I could hear what y'all are responses to that. I hope that wasn't too much or too. It's kind of advanced in some ways stuff. I was going through it really fast, but even if it was just to kind of see what these experiential therapy sessions can be like. And next time, hopefully, it will be a better deal where I can see your chats in the chat box. Sorry that got glitchy today. But either way, I'll look forward to seeing y'all. I hate saying goodbye without seeing your chats. I love all your goodbye chats usually, but I guess I'll just end it here. And then I think we do have one more before the summer break. Let me just check my calendar. Yes, one more, and then I'll see y'all next week, and then we'll have a little break. All right, take care, everybody. Bye.